Story number 1. My boyfriend and I recently moved into a new house together. We'd been dating for several years, but this would be the first time we would be living together. To make a long story short, when we moved in, there was already a landline installed into the house. This happened recently, like last year recent, so no one really uses landlines anymore. I mean, we hardly ever call people either. We mostly send texts or voice notes. So neither of us actually expected the landline to ring at any point. It was on the first day that the phone rang for the first time. We drove out to the new house early in the morning. The moving van wouldn't even be there with our stuff for another few hours. My boyfriend unlocked the door and wanted to carry me in symbolically. The moment we entered the house, the phone began ringing. He practically dropped me to the floor. He was so shocked. I suggested we answer it, but my boyfriend insisted that it wouldn't be for any of us and that we should just leave it. So we did. I can't explain the horror that filled both of us as we stood there and listened to the phone going to voicemail. No, this was one of those landlines that would play the voicemail while it was being recorded by the caller on the other side. That kind of made it even more terrifying.
This is my house. You're in my house. Get out.
The voice in the recording sounded like an old man, but there was a growl in his voice. In the middle of the voicemail, it sounded like he was shouting some kind of curses at us, but we couldn't make any of it out. The only thing we could make out for certain was that he was telling us to get out of his house. I was completely terrified, but my boyfriend burst out laughing. He seemed convinced that it was just some prank. He even said that it was probably the old owner and that he has a sick sense of humor I don't understand. I wasn't convinced. The phone didn't ring again, but that wasn't the end of our problems. Strange things started happening ever since that first day. Things went missing, doors were left unlocked and open. We had a pool in the backyard, and I usually keep the back door closed because my small dog loves water but doesn't know how to swim. I would come downstairs almost every day to find the back door open and my dog inches away from falling into the pool. I had no idea what was going on. My boyfriend insisted that we were both just being absent-minded. It was a new house. We were still getting used to living there. I didn't buy it. Something else was going on, and one night I was finally proven right. I couldn't sleep that night because of something that had happened to me earlier in the day. I was downstairs, reading while enjoying a cup of tea, when I swear I heard footsteps above me. When I ran upstairs to check, there was no one there. While lying awake in bed, I heard it again. Footsteps, but they were in the room with us. The floorboards creaked softly, getting louder as the footsteps came closer to us. My whole body was shaking. Soft snores escaped from my sleeping boyfriend. The footsteps stopped right beside the bed. I turned slowly. I half expected it all to be in my head, so I didn't think I'd turn around to see an old man standing beside the bed, looking down at us with the sickest smile spread across his face. I let out a banshee scream. The man's smile disappeared and a look of shock entered his eyes. My boyfriend woke with a start. He saw the man and his reaction was completely different. He got angry. He got really angry. The man ran out of the room and my boyfriend chased after him. I managed to get a hold of the cops while my boyfriend chased him around the house. When they got there, the man insisted that we were in his house and that we should be arrested for trespassing. Apparently, the man had been living in the house's basement for years. I didn't even know the house had a basement. The old owner stated that strange things happened to him while he was living there, but he always thought that the house was haunted. He never imagined that there was actually someone living there. We still live in the same house. We had the landline removed not long after finding out that the man living in the basement was the one that left the voicemail. Nothing strange has happened since that night, but I still feel eyes on me everywhere I go. Story number 2. I got a new phone recently. I'm not very well off when it comes to money, so the fact that I got myself a new phone is quite a rarity. I'd been using the same phone for the past 10 years and, let's just say, it was hanging on by a thread and more than obsolete by that point. Anyway, my new phone was great. It wasn't top of the line or anything, but it got the job done without the obvious flaws my old phone had, such as a cracked screen, slow software, and very little space. The thing about my new phone was that I ended up getting a whole new number as well. I had a lot of old, useless contacts on my old phone. The only people I needed to be able to contact me were my parents, so it seemed easier to just go with the new number and not have to port over my old one. Now, here's where it gets strange. My phone was brand new, the number was brand new, so imagine my surprise when I turned it on for the first time and someone actually called me. It was an unknown number, and I had no desire to talk to someone I didn't know, so I let it ring. When it went to voicemail, I expected the person to hang up, but they actually left a message. You could say curiosity got the better of me. I played it, and I still get chills today when I think about it.
Hello? Is anyone there? Can you help me? I'm so cold. Hello? Are you there? Please, can you help me? I don't know where I am. It's so dark and cold. I'm scared. He's going to come back, and I don't know what to do.
As you can imagine, the jokes and giggles ended right there. I cursed my curiosity and had half a mind to throw the phone into a nearby river and be done with it. The girl on the voicemail couldn't stop crying, even while she was talking and asking for help. It sounded like there was water dripping in the background. When I heard the door slam in the background and the girl gasp, my blood turned cold. The call ended there, after a thumping sound that made me think the girl dropped the phone. I was shaking all over. I didn't know what to do. I didn't recognize the voice of the girl, and it was a completely new number. No one should be able to call it, unless they just dialed some random numbers and were lucky enough to get my combination. I decided to take the voicemail to the police. I didn't know what to do with it. I wanted to convince myself that it was all some sick joke, but I didn't want it weighing on my soul if it turned out to be real. The police couldn't trace the call because it was from an unknown number. They confiscated my new phone, and I had to go back to using the old one for a while. They eventually gave it back, unable to come up with anything. The case was considered cold. To this day, I'm still not sure if that really was a girl in desperate need of help, or some sicko's idea of a joke. Story number 3. This story isn't just about one voicemail I received, but several. There were at least 3 voicemails from the exact same person left on my phone. It all came from an unknown number, which is the only reason I didn't answer the call in the first place. It was Christmas Eve, and I was kind of bummed I'd be spending it all by myself. It was the first time in years that I wouldn't be visiting family or having friends over. The main reasons being that I lived alone at the time, and I have a compromised immune system. It was during the height of the pandemic, and I wasn't seeing anyone in any capacity. Anyway, I decided to keep up with the traditions I was used to. The one tradition was to sit in front of a fire with a cup of hot chocolate and watch Christmas movies. I didn't have a fireplace, so I set up my laptop screen with a fire on it and made do. That was when my phone rang. Like I said, it was an unknown number, so I didn't bother. It went straight to voicemail, and I guess out of curiosity, I listened to it. What came next was the most terrifying night of my life.
I'm outside your house. Let me in. I've got a present for you.
Obviously, chills ran up and down my spine, even though my initial thought was that this was some kind of prank by one of my friends. I didn't recognize the man's voice. He whispered at the start of the message. Then his voice became very playful and song-like, as if he was teasing me. I tried to ignore it, but I got a second call from an unknown number. Of course, I didn't answer it, and they left another voicemail. I couldn't help myself, so I listened to it.
Knock, knock. Won't you let me in?
I was terrified at this point, but a part of me was still convinced this was some kind of joke. That was when I heard a knock at the front door. I shot to my feet, but I was frozen in place. I could just see the front door down the end of the hallway from where I was standing in the living room. The force of the knocking caused the door to shake. I thought it might fly off its hinges. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't move. All I could do was stand there and watch the door shake as the man on the other side pounded on the wood. After a few minutes, the knocking stopped. I was still frozen in place. I knew the door was locked and that there was no way he'd actually be able to kick it down, no matter how much I worried that he might. So, for the most part, I thought I was safe. My phone rang again. This time I declined the call and sent it straight to voicemail. I don't know what possessed me to listen to it. Honestly, I'm glad that I did, or else I wouldn't have known.
I can see you. Are you alone in there?
As the voicemail ended, I looked up. There was a window right in front of me that led out onto the street. The curtain was open, and because of the lights being on in the house and it being completely dark on the other side, I couldn't see anything. Somehow, I just knew that whoever was outside my house, whoever was leaving me those voicemails, was standing right there and looking straight at me. I ran for my life, up the stairs and into my bedroom. I locked the door, closed the curtains, and dived underneath my bed. I called the police, and for what seemed like the longest night of my life, I waited under that bed until I heard the sirens in the distance. The dispatch lady stayed on the call with me, and she was the only reason I was able to stay calm. I saw my life flash before my eyes that night. The man wasn't there when the police arrived. I played them the voicemails while I explained what happened. Thankfully, they left a patrol car outside my house for the rest of the night. At least I didn't have to spend Christmas alone after all. That night still haunts me to this day. Even though my immune system is compromised, I don't live alone anymore. It's difficult, but my roommate respects my boundaries and we've become good friends. I moved out of that house and I got a new number. I haven't gotten any calls like that again, and I hope that I never do. I don't know who that man was or what he planned on doing to me. I don't want to think about it. The things that I can imagine probably don't come close to what he had planned for me, and that's what terrifies me.